It's not often I get starstruck by guests on Numberphile, but today's a bit of an exception. That's because it's the actress Danica McKellar. She played girl next door Winnie Cooper in the TV show The Wonder Years. In the late 80s and early 90s, she must have been nearly everybody's childhood crush. I was no exception. Danica went on to feature in another of my favourite TV shows, The West Wing. These days, she stars in various TV films, usually those kind of romantic, wholesome movies you might watch at Christmas. But okay, what's this got to do with mathematics, I hear you ask? Well, somehow, in between all that acting, Danica also obtained an impressive degree in mathematics from UCLA. There's even a theorem she proved bearing the McKellar name. And she's since become a prolific writer of books aimed at getting more young people, especially girls, engaged with math. They have titles like Math Doesn't Suck, Girls Get Curves, and Hot X. That's to name just a few. She's a real math advocate, even testifying before Congress about the need for changes in education. Okay, so here we go, something I can't believe I'm saying. Here's Winnie from the Wonder Years on the Numberphile podcast. Thank you for joining us. I was a big Wonder Years fan, like all people my age. I grew up with the Wonder Years, and Winnie Cooper was my girl next door. This is the character that you played in the Wonder Years. So I have to tell you a little story from this year before we start.
Okay.
My wife bought me a little puppy for Valentine's Day.
Aw.
It was a surprise. And I walked into the lounge room and there it was with a ribbon around its neck. Very cute. And I said, I was quite shocked. It was unplanned. And then I said, oh, that's really cute. And she said, and I've decided we're going to call it Winnie because I know how much you love Winnie Cooper from the Wonder Years. So our puppy is called, its official name is Winnie Cooper.
That's so cute. That's adorable. I love that.
It did make me think though. I have a Wonder Years question for you.
Yes.
How do you feel about the name Winnie? Because as an actress, you don't choose characters' names. You probably weren't to know how amazing the show was going to be and how it would be connected to you for the rest of your life. And
right.
I'm sure you're hardly ever introduced in any other way other than Winnie from the Wonder Years. How do you feel about the name Winnie?
In her role as Winnie Cooper in The Wonder Years.
For 6 seasons, Danica McKellar starred as Winnie Cooper.
Starring that girl from The Wonder Years.
She was a child star, best known as Winnie Cooper on the beloved TV hit show The Wonder Years.
Oh, it's adorable. It's so cute. I mean, I'm used to it, of course. In the first episode of The Wonder Years, the idea was that Winnie didn't want to be called Winnie anymore. I wanted to be called Gwendolyn.
I don't want to be called Winnie anymore. My real name is Gwendolyn.
And of course, that didn't stick. But that was one of the first things that my character even says in the show is, I don't want to be called, I don't want to be Winnie anymore. But guess what? She stayed Winnie, and so did I.
Winnie has always conjured up images of you in that television show for me, although over the last few months, as I clean up little doggy doo-doos and tell off a barking dog, my
whole new meaning. Yeah.
My relationship with the name Winnie.
Winnie, no.
Yes. I'm shouting it through the house. So, but anyway, and you were also in my second favorite show of all time, The West Wing. So, like, you're really ticking all the boxes here.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah. Yeah. No, that was a great experience. The West Wing, Elsie Snuffin. Talk about strange names. Elsie Snuffin. And I remember Aaron Sorkin told me he named the character after an actress named Elsie Sniffen, who he'd worked with. When I auditioned for The West Wing, it was just supposed to be like literally one scene in one episode. And I was such a West Wing fan. I was like, I want to audition for this. And the character name was Tracy. It was like a no big deal. And then I read for it, and I read for Aaron Sorkin in the callback. And he was like, I'm making this a bigger character in this episode, and we're going to do more episodes. And he renamed her from Tracy to Elsie Snuffin.
Okay. And now you're on Numberphile. So you've completed the trilogy.
For sure. Yeah. And of course I do all my Christmas movies, right? Like everybody knows me now for my Christmas movies, first on Hallmark Channel, now Great American Family Channel for a couple of years now. And it's all the same, like good natured, family friendly content, which I love being a part of. Between The Wonder Years and The West Wing, that's when I got my degree in mathematics. That's when I went to UCLA, took a break from acting. And in fact, there was a New York Times article that came out in 2005, which turned out to be one of the things that inspired my book career. The headline was, "In Between Series, Danica McKellar becomes a superstar in math because I helped to prove a theorem. And the two series were The Wonder Years and The West Wing.
We will come to that shortly because I want to go back to the beginning. Now, because so often when I interview people on this podcast, I sort of say, "Oh, what were you like when you were a kid?" And it's a part of their life that's quite unexplored. And I find that quite interesting. But of course, your childhood was quite public. But not
Indeed.
until you were a teenager, as far as I can tell. So what were you like as a really young girl? What did you want to do? What did you want to be? What were your interests before you were a child actress?
I mean, like, if you were to look at my notebooks when I was scribbling the things I love, it was math and dance. I always had the duality of loving math and loving performing. And I was always a little ham, camcorder, home movies. I'd be jumping in front of the camera and making up. I used to make up plays. My sister and I would put on plays for family when they came into town and visit. I was just always looking to entertain and always loved the challenge of math. I always loved solving puzzles. I love puzzles too. I've always loved both of those things.
So if I was to gain access to these childhood mathematical notebooks and scribbles, what would I see? What would be on the page?
Lots of hearts and flowers. And then I love dance. I love math. Yeah.
But would you also be doing sums and working things out, or what was the mathiness to it?
No, I just liked math class. I just liked the challenge of solving things. And I wouldn't even have considered myself to be great at math. I was a good student in general. I did well in basically all my subjects, but I loved when things were hard. It's like if somebody said to me, "I bet you can't do such and such," I'd be like, "Oh yeah." That kind of response to challenge has always been a part of my personality, for better or worse. And that has fueled me in a lot of things in my life that are challenging and daunting. Perhaps okay, well then let me see, then let me try.
So when you started acting and you were still a teenager, you had this, obviously you were probably pretty busy with the television show. How did that work? Was that kind of that image I always have of the child actors between scenes being taken away by tutors and getting this education in between takes, or was it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, sometimes in 20-minute increments. And that's part of what trained me to have the duality of the life that I have today, which is I'm shooting movies. I just got back from one. And then one of the things I'm doing right now is working on doing illustration approvals for my next math book. So this going back and forth and being able to segment my brain and say, I'm doing this right now. And now I'm doing this. And now I'm back to doing this. And now, having the ability to do that has been such a blessing. And that was the training ground, was being on the Wonder Years and going back and forth between school and shooting. And I also went back and forth between the set and my school at the time, because there were episodes when I only worked 2 days out of the week and I would go to my regular school in between. And it was a difficult prep school. It was not some actor's school. And there were some of those in Los Angeles. I went to Westlake and then Harvard Westlake. And it was rigorous schoolwork that I was balancing with my career.
So when you were doing that, when you were acting in the Wonder Years and you were also doing school, you were learning and doing lessons and things like that. But the show had become very popular and very famous. So I imagine you were quite giddy with the success the show was having. What were you thinking your adulthood was going to be like? Were you thinking, "Oh, cool, I'm going to be a movie star now"? Or were you thinking, "Oh, I need to think about other careers and I like mathematics"? And where did you think your future was going at that point?
First of all, I was not aware of how successful the Wonder Years was, to the extent that it was. There's no way. There's one person on set once said, "Hey, how do you feel about being America's sweetheart?" I was like, "What?" I just no concept of it until later. So during that, I never had any doubt that I was going to go to college. And I knew that I just felt like I had a lot of options and I was going to see, and I knew that I loved acting. I didn't know that I would, want to do something more than acting. But when I got to college, I just instinctively knew that I wanted to take a break and explore math, because I thought, I'm never going to go back later and study math, but I can always go back later to acting. So, and I felt so alive when I was doing these difficult math problems. And I needed that palate cleanser to take me from being so associated with this one very popular show and this thing that child actors go through, where there's an insecurity that develops because what if I didn't, everybody thinks I'm so great because of this one thing. what if I didn't have that? Who would I be? Where would my value be? And so I had to discover what that was on my own. And it was so diametrically different from acting, being a math major and becoming a calculus tutor in the math department, and fully immersing myself in that world where I didn't wear makeup. I didn't care what I was wearing. I just put on some t-shirt and jeans and trek across campus and study and be smart. And it felt very glamorous to me. So that was perfect, and it's what I needed. And even at that time, if you'd asked me, well, is this going to be your life now? I couldn't have told you. I just knew that that's what I needed to do then. And then after that, near the end of college, I started missing acting and missing performing. And so I joined the theater group on camp, like the Shakespeare theater group, and start doing Shakespeare plays while I was finishing up my degree. And then when I came back into acting, I started auditioning again after college and did The West Wing.
Take me to when you started college, because the Wonder Years is finished at that point? Had the Wonder Years finished when you started college? Right.
A few months before, yeah.
So you start college, and what was the degree you were doing? What were you like? When you first went in? Was it mathematics or was it something else? What did you start?
No, I was going to be a film major. That's what I figured I would do. But you couldn't apply to be a film major till you were a junior. So in the meantime, I was just doing my basic requirements, and then I fell in love with math. I took calculus, multivariable calculus, and I was hooked. It's like I just felt so smart, and it felt so right. And you got to listen to that when your gut tells you. And I was very successful, and I shot to the top of my class, and it was overwhelming and exciting, and I wanted to run with it.
Had the writing not been on the wall in high school? Had your high school teachers not thought, "Wow, you've got a real aptitude for math. You should consider this"? Like you sound surprised that you were so good at it at college.
I was surprised, and I had done very well in high school. But I went to Harvard-Westlake, which was one of the top 10 high schools in the country, maybe even more. And so I was in a pool of very, very smart people, and I wasn't necessarily exceptional. I was smart, and I did well. But I know I never was made to feel like, oh, you must pursue math. I did well in all my subjects, and I studied really hard. It wasn't until I got to college that I thought, wait, I want to specialize in this.
So you made a decision to change horses midstream. You said, I'm not going to do the film major. I'm going to do what? Math.
Math. And it was a scary decision in some ways, because I thought, what if I can't go back to acting? But when you just know in your gut, you don't have to see that far into the future. If you can just feel that this is right, and I needed it. I knew that I needed it. I needed to find out who else I was away from Winnie Cooper, away from acting, away from the glamour of Hollywood. Who am I at my core? What else do I have to offer?
Was any part of you thinking this could be a career? I could be a math professor in the future, or?
Potentially, yeah. It's just that I started really missing performing. And I also missed sharing myself with people, because when you become very specialized in math, there's a very small number of people who even can understand the things that you're thinking about and that you want to be talking about. I couldn't have a conversation with my family about the things I was excited about, that I was discovering and that I was helping to prove. I would have to describe and define every vocabulary word along the way, to the point where by the time I finished describing, the story didn't even get a chance to get started. And I started feeling a little too detached from everyone. But I love math, and I love what math does for your brain. And little did I know that I would be able to find that perfect balance by writing math books, because then I could be celebrating what math does for your brain. I could be problem solving. How do I make this fun? How do I make this accessible? And also be entertaining. So my whole thing is making math entertaining, taking my love of entertainment, my love of math, and my understanding of how good it is for your brain. What it did for me was amazing. It gave me a confidence that I didn't have coming out of the Wonder Years, because doing something like that produces insecurities. It doesn't produce confidence. It produces insecurities of, who else would I be if I didn't have this? But you don't have to then on television as a teenager to be struggling with your value and your identity. And so I recognized that, I got all that confidence and strength from math, from doing math, from practicing something that is typically seen as difficult, and you experience it as difficult, but then you push through it and you discover things and you learn that you're smarter than you thought because you pushed through. And I want to give that to kids. I want to give them the roadmap to finding that same confidence that comes from feeling smart and capable. And that's what I've been doing since 2007.
When you started doing college math and you learned obviously that mathematics isn't just about getting answers right in a test, and there's this whole world of proof, and there's all this beauty to mathematics and this complexity that's kind of you're not ready for at high school, to be honest. Or maybe you are, that's a whole other argument. But when you were introduced to real mathematics at college, what was that like? What was that change like from thinking, oh, I'm just good at finding the answers, to realizing there were all these things that could be these unexplored frontiers?
Yeah, well, the higher up you get in math, the more you feel like an explorer, and you feel you're solving mysteries, solving puzzles, you're solving mysteries. But I did take calculus in high school. At the end of high school, it was single variable calculus. So I was already starting to do proofs at that point as well. So I was aware of it, but yeah, it deepened in college for sure. It was incredible. And I got a chalkboard from my college apartment, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night and have an idea for how to solve something, and I'd sketch it out and go back to sleep. I was super uber nerd, very proud, very proudly so.
I've got it here. Here we go. I'm holding it in front of me. Percolation and Gibbs states multiplicity for ferromagnetic Ashton-Teller
on
modes.
Z2.
Okay. So, and we have this, is it Shays or Kays? How do I say this name?
Shays McKellar Win. Mm-hmm.
So I have the Shays McKellar Win theorem.
Yeah.
So I have the paper, I have skimmed it. I'm not a mathematician, and even if I was, I don't know if I'd.
You know what? It is so specialized that I looked at it recently and I was like, wait, what? That was a long time ago. That was 1998.
Okay, so this is your big math. This is your big contribution to the pantheon of mathematics. Can you give me? I'm not going to ask you to explain it, but can you say anything?
It's a mathematical model of magnetic material, basically. And there's two states that we proved had the same critical temperature, above which something would be true and below which something wouldn't be true. And it's something that my professor, Lincoln Shays, had proven a more specific case of, and he told myself and another student, Brandy Wynn, it's like, I think you guys are like my best students, and I think that this can be proven for a slightly more general case. And so he went through and taught us everything we needed to know for what he had done with his paper. And then he is like, okay, and here, go. Like, here's where, dig over here, try this stuff. And we'd work. And I remember Brandy and I would be at each other's houses it was like 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. every single day for that summer of 97, I think it was. At the chalkboard, for sure. And when we were at my house and when we would go to her house, we'd go back and forth. And it was such a fun summer. It really was. We had such a great time. And then we'd bring our findings to the professor about once a week. And he's like, okay, well, you're making progress over here, but try this over here instead. And then we'd go back to work, and eventually we proved it. But proving theorem is not like a scientific discovery, because you think you've proven it, and you're like, oh, there's a case we didn't think of, there's a loophole. And then you try, oh yeah, not quite. And then you don't find any mistakes. You're like, okay, maybe this is it. And you show it to other people, and they don't find any mistakes. Okay. And then eventually you send it to a journal, and then they don't find any mistakes. But this is months and months. And you're like, I guess we proved it. there's no like, eat gods. But you have a lot of those moments when you think of a new way to try. And that's fun in itself. You're like, oh, wait, this is an interesting method. So you have a lot of those little moments, but it's not like one big ta-da, we did it.
How do you feel about this paper compared with, some of your movies and best TV shows and things? Do you look at it in the same way? Do you look at it very differently?
It's completely different. Yeah, it's very different. I mean, the movies are such a collaboration, and that was a collaboration as well, but there were only 3 of us involved. Movies are an incredibly large collaboration. I am very involved in my movies that I shoot for Great American Family Channel now. I helped to write the one that I just shot. I executive produced it. I was involved in every aspect, from, again, like the writing to a little bit for the locations, props, casting. changing the script on the day if something was kind of different. A lot of problem solving, which is again super fun. And then I'll be involved in the edit. I'll be seeing the first cut next week, and I'll be like, wait, there was this one other take that we got. I remember, and I'll go find it in the dailies. That's what's called me, all the rough cuts, and it's a really, really fun, very involved process compared to a paper that I wrote, a long, long time ago in college. It's more exciting, to be honest. I know people would want to hear me say, oh, the math is more exciting, but actually this is more exciting because it involves so many things and so many people, and then you get to share it with so many more people. There may have been 50 people who ever actually read that paper and understood it and appreciated it, because math is like I like to say the trunk of the tree is addition, subtraction, multiplication, whatever fractions. As you branch off and you get geometry and algebra and different things, and then you get more and more specialized to the point where this teeny little branch on this side has nothing to do with this teeny little branch over there, and they don't speak the same language at all. And that's where all the new research is happening, or most of it. And so, there's almost nobody's there in your community to appreciate it or be inspired by it. But these movies, they've got such a positive message. And it really does inspire people. And I'm hoping to inspire people to want to dance and inspire people to, be better people.
Isn't there part of you that thinks like mathematics is like eternal, and you've added a brick to this eternal wall, whereas films are, they're nice and they're lovely, but in like 100 years they're probably gone and forgotten. But this paper, this will, in 1,000 years you will have laid a brick in this wall that has gone to who knows where.
Right, that's true. But my legacy though in math, I do believe, is my books, because I've had so many, especially girls, come up to me, or young women, and say, "You inspired me when I was in the 6th grade. I was so confused and I thought I couldn't do math. And I had Math Doesn't Suck." That's the first book that I ever wrote. It's for 5th, 6th grade, and you changed my life. I've had so many women say that to me. You've changed my life. I got back into it. I understood it. I became confident. And then one told me that she was going to be working for NASA, and that was her dream. And she like credited my books for that. And that means so much to me. And that is what I am honestly the proudest of, is all of the girls and young women whose lives, and boys too. A lot, like the Times Machine, that's multiplication and division, is 3rd and 4th grade. That's for boys and girls. My middle school and high school books I wrote for girls. Boys use them too, for sure. But I love the idea of breaking the stereotypes that, you have to be a certain kind of person to be good at math. And something I didn't get a chance to say earlier is, in college, before I chose to be a math major, I didn't even think it was possible for some reason. And why? I was in the top 3% of my high school class in all subjects. And I'd taken AP Calculus BC in high school, and I'd gotten a 5 on the exam, which is the highest score you can get. But I got to college, and in my brain, I was like, oh, well, college math, I mean, that's got to be just so hard. And that's for other college math people. That's not for me. Why on earth did I think that? Just social conditioning. That has to be it. Because if I was really honest, I'm thinking it's probably like Asian guys are probably like really good at math, but not me. That's, our brains trick us. I mean, just from stereotypes. And that, I love the idea that by putting myself on the cover of this book, just by being the author, that I can train girls to think that math is for them too. They're not an exception or a sidebar, or like, oh, hey, how about that? She's, good at, no. It's for you as well. It's for everybody.
You mentioned the different experience that girls and women have. Did you have that? I guess you're kind of an outlier case, because you were kind of famous because you'd been on TV and stuff. But
yeah, but you know what? The professors had no idea who I was, by and large.
Right.
In that world,
then how did they receive you then? They didn't know you were you'd been this TV star.
Fine.
How did they receive you? Were you treated differently to the boys?
No, but it doesn't matter. And I never had anybody tell me in high school or college, oh, you're not going to be as good at this because you're a girl. That never happened. But the images that we see in the world, in the media, the values that we are taught to hold about what makes a woman valuable, and it just gets into your brain. It gets in that your appearance is really kind of the most important thing. These really warped messages get through to girls. And because of that, we have biases against ourselves that you don't even realize until you're confronted with it, until you're faced with like, wait, am I really going to try to be a math major? Because am I going to survive it? Now, but what I will say is that I was in the minority in the classes. I would say in the calculus classes, it was maybe a third women, but then getting up into the higher level courses is maybe 10% women, maybe. It was really a stark contrast. You're like, wow, I'm really outnumbered. And then you go, okay, well, whatever. I'm gonna represent. I'm here to represent. But I never had a professor doubt me because I was female, at least not that I knew of. But that doesn't, even without that, you can still experience that bias in your own head.
I guess an interesting thing about you, though, is like, you've become somewhat of a mathematical role model. We'll talk more about the books shortly and things like that. And there's all these media articles about how, Winnie Cooper became a math whiz, but you didn't become a mathematician. You finished your degree, you did really well, you wrote this paper, but then you went into acting. Like, are you a role model for mathematics if you chose not to do it?
I'm a math communicator. I can use my celebrity to help parents find my books, and then their kids have the opportunity to grow from them. I could have stayed in academia and I could have done something and people would maybe notice and maybe not. But what I found is that I had this craving to communicate with people, to share with people on a broader scale. So the books turned out to be the absolute perfect mix of that, because I have this opportunity that not a lot of people have, a platform from which to make a lot of noise about math and to get the message out and to get the books out into more kids' hands.
I just want to take a very quick break to thank Jane Street for supporting this episode of the podcast. Regular Numberphile viewers will know Jane Street by now. They're a big-time finance firm with offices all around the world, places like New York, London, Hong Kong. But they're not here to sell anything or ask for your money. They actually want to offer you some opportunities. You see, Jane Street's always looking for great people to join their amazing teams, especially people who love math or into computers, just curious and clever people. There's a great range of jobs and internships. You can check out their website for all that. It's always being updated. But they also run these amazing programs and events where you can just go and get to know them, see what they do. They're often held at their really impressive offices around the world, and they really spare no expense getting you there, making sure you have a memorable experience. One of the programs is called Insight. It's particularly aimed at women, transgender, and gender-expansive people. No prior knowledge about finance required. None of that stuff's expected. They have all sorts of other programs for people from all backgrounds. Go and have a look at their website, janestreet.com, and click on the section where it says Join Jane Street. I'll also include some more direct links and stuff in the notes for this episode. They're good people. You won't regret going and seeing what they do, hanging out with them. This is a great opportunity. But now, back to our interview with Danica. Quickly, can I ask you about going to Congress? You testified before a congressional committee.
Did you read the transcript? Because they asked me the same question that you just did. They said, well, I mean, I don't remember the exact words, but it was basically, don't you think that you should be a mathematician then? And I gave them the same answer.
Oh no, you're comparing me to the congressman.
Well, unfortunately, yes. Yeah. But that's okay. It's a perfectly valid question. My superpower is in getting this message out to more people. And the biggest positive effect I can have is these books, getting them out to kids, getting more comfortable, especially girls. I can do this because look, she did it. And I get to go on the talk shows. I get to go on the Today Show. I get to do these things because of my continuing acting career, because I'm staying, relevant in the media. Then I have a larger voice, and I'm going to use it for as much good as I possibly can.
One question I wanted to ask you before we started this interview, but I think I already know the answer, and you've answered it in like about 5 different ways. But I was going to ask you, because you've got a theorem named after you, which I'm so jealous of. I was going to ask you, is there ever anything in the back of your mind that thinks, oh, it would have been nice to stay in math and prove more theorems and maybe one of the big ones and knock off some of the, your Riemann hypothesis type stuff and all that? I could have been one of the greats of mathematics. That sounds like that's not an itch that you have.
No, the itch that I have is spreading the word. The itch that I have is inspiring kids, and they're not going to be reading those papers. If they get to that paper, they already made it. They made it. And like when I spoke to Congress, it's really funny. I'll just quickly tell you this. So I was asked by a commission to come and speak on their behalf, trying to get more money for college girls, young women in college. Like if we get more scholarships for these government funded scholarships for girls, is going to inspire more women to go into math and science. And I read the 100-page report about the issues with girls and math, and it was I read every word. I studied. I mean, I was fresh out of college, so I was really in the study mode, and it was clear to me. This is before I started writing books. It was clear that middle school was the time when girls started falling away from math in their confidence. And that's everything, because if you lose your confidence in math, even if your grades are still doing fine, then as soon as you hit your first stumbling block, a difficult teacher, a difficult test, a difficult whatever, and you don't do well, instead of seeing it as a temporary stumbling block, you're more likely to see it as evidence of what you've always known deep down, which is that you don't belong in math. And that is true. I've tested this theory. I've talked to so many people. This is the case. So I'm like, okay, this is clear in the paper that they've done this research. Sixth grade, fifth semester, this is the time when we need to help students. It's too late by college. If they're pursuing a math degree in college or thinking about it, they've overcome all the major obstacles already. That's not what we need. So in my extremely logical mindset that I was in after college, I wasn't thinking politically about the people who invited me there at all. It did not occur to me until years later that the argument that I made in that room, in that Congress about, it's too late. It's too late by college. We need to give money to middle school math teachers and programs in middle school to help kids. And they must have been horrified and angry that they'd invited me. They didn't get their money. And it didn't occur to me until later that this wasn't just simply me going there to try to help the world. It was the people who invited me. Anyway, so yeah, needless to say, they did not get their funding. But I stood up there and I told the truth. And I made a pledge then. I said, I'm going to do everything I can to help middle school math. And I'm going to be good PR for math. And it was shortly after that I started writing these books.
Now's a good time to read something back to you that you wrote that I bookmarked in one of your books, because I think it sums up what you said just then really, really well. Funnily enough, it's Goodnight Numbers, which is a little children's book for reading to your 2-year-old as they go to sleep, which I'll be trying tomorrow night with my 2-year-old.
Good. And just learning to count from 1 to 10, and every page has things to count on it. Like the 3-page, there's 3 of everything. It's very cute, lovely illustrations as well. But in the back, you write a little message to the parents or grandparents or caregivers, like a little wink behind the children's back about what you're trying to accomplish with the book, which was a nice little touch. And you say here, and I'll read this back to you because I thought it was a really nice summary of what you think some of the problems are. As you probably know, there is an epidemic in our country of kids growing up learning to fear math, which of course can adversely affect their futures in countless ways. It begins at a very young age as they absorb the negative stereotypes surrounding math, that it's foreign, scary, not needed in real life, from the media, and even from family and friends. And with every day that passes in our increasingly tech-driven society, math becomes more and more critical for our children's success. The good news is we have the power to do something about it. And what is the solution? Making sure our kids see math as friendly and relevant in their lives, and it's never too soon to start. Well done. That's not bad. Thank you. Yeah, and I've got that's on the young end, obviously, of the books that I've written, and I go all the way straight through to high school geometry.
The mathematics in these books are pretty elementary to you, who has a degree in mathematics. You don't miss flexing that muscle, that you and Brandy at the blackboard, like trying to nut out a really serious hard problem. You don't get to flex that muscle anymore?
No, I know. It's I'm a mom now, and I homeschool my child, and we're almost to algebra 2, so we're like, I'll get to do calculus with him, but that stuff, proving stuff, of course I miss it. But in this life, you can only do so many things at once. I've been training with my waltz dancing. It's intricate and it's difficult and it's challenging and it's a different kind of challenge. But putting that into my movie, into my Royal Christmas movie that I just shot, huge challenges. So while I don't do the same kinds of challenges, there are still plenty, and I definitely attract challenges. I lean into them, and I love problem solving of all kinds, which I definitely find both in writing books, parenting, and then doing my movies.
You said something before which I found interesting that I don't really think I've heard people say much before, but it seems kind of obvious now. And that is, one of your problems with doing the higher level mathematics was you felt detached and you felt like you couldn't talk to your family and friends about it. It was this whole other language. And and you are probably a more extroverted person. You like communicating and being around people and things like that. I wonder whether or not mathematics is losing a lot of good brains because it has that problem. That people like you, even if you have a skill at it, won't stick with it because it doesn't satisfy that part of your personality.
I mean, there's all kind of personalities that out there, and that's what makes the world go round. But I don't feel like everyone needs to go into mathematics. And it's not even my goal to create mathematicians out of everyone. My goal is to make sure that fear of math doesn't keep someone from going into it or keep someone from going into any of the sciences, just to know that kids feel completely empowered to do it. And then the right personalities will find the right careers. We wouldn't want people to be in a career that's not right for their personality type. But I definitely want to make sure that no one is scared off by it, that they are like, you know what, though, I got this, though. I can totally do this. And that's what I want to spread throughout the US and the world.
Do you have any plans now that you're an executive producer as well and have more power? Are we going to see one of your romantic films in which you are a mathematician?
Well, I've done one of the movies as a math teacher back in 2017. That was the first movie that I produced, and it was for Hallmark Channel. So that was a lot of fun. And I got to have a whole scene where I'm inspiring this teenage girl to embrace her smarts and to not be afraid of math and all the stuff that I talk about. And they let me keep that scene in. So I was like, oh, I hope they don't cut it. It's not really moving the story forward, but they let me keep it in. And it was great to do that. And I often sneak little bits of math here and there where I can. It's fun to have that kind of creative involvement in these movies.
Tabitha, 1 in 6?
That's right.
Every time you roll the dice, the odds are the same.
You get a fresh chance to get what you want.
Have a wonderful rest of your day. Pi Day, that is. March 14th, 3.14.
Do you know it's one of the cruel ironies of the Wonder Years that perhaps close to one of my favorite episodes is an episode I don't believe you are in, and it's the mathematics episode with the math teacher and Kevin. What a great episode that was.
I know. There are two of them. There's the one where the teacher helps him, right? And the next, wasn't there? And then the one where he dies.
Not your friend, Mr. Arnold. Your teacher.
But that is an episode I have gone back to like as an adult a few times, and ironic that it's one that you didn't participate in, and you were the mathematician in the cast. So
right. Although there was that one episode where I do better on the SATs than Kevin did.
Yes,
I got a higher math score. They did put that
and you
in.
didn't want to tell him, and that's so what you're about, on brand for you. That's exactly the problem you're talking about.
Early 70s, yeah.
I don't think it's such a good idea to talk about them like this. They're kind of private.
Well, I do tell him. I just hesitate because I know he's...
Yeah.
I feel bad. Yeah.
725 verbal, 757 math.
Somehow I skipped "that's wonderful" and "I'm so proud of you" and cut right to the bottom line.
That's a 1481.
But that's just a number. Besides, it's a 1482.
You've written all these books. A lot of them are aimed at girls. Some of them are aimed at boys. Some of them, all different ages. People can go to the website. I will link to it prominently. I just want to ask you about writing them, because I was going through a couple of them earlier, and obviously I'm not the target audience. But I do like them, and what I like about them is that they're really busy and they're really bitty, and there's lots of little sections and little breakouts and little boxes with little stories in it and things like that. And every page is, I say this in a good way, it's kind of a mess. It kind of jumps out at you and you don't know where to look, and there's so much to look at.
Every page is different.
That's a really cool thing for young people. But it does make me wonder what your writing process looks like. I can't imagine you can sit at a typewriter and bang one of these out. Like, if I was to be a fly on the wall when you were writing these books, what would I see? What does it look like? Have you got Post-it notes everywhere? Or have you got big charts? Or are you handwriting? Or are you on a computer? How do you write these books?
On my computer, and I have an outline going on one document, and then chapters. Each chapter is its own document. And then when something so what you're talking about, all the little breakouts, a lot of them are like non-math, but they're sort of math inspired. So one of them, one's called Diamonds Are Girls' Best Friend, a little breakout box. And it's talking about how diamonds form, these sparkly, beautiful things, form under incredible heat and pressure and over lots of time. And to think of yourself as a diamond, and this time you're putting in by yourself, you are creating yourself into the sparkly, valuable thing. So that one isn't necessarily tied to any particular math topic. So that one, maybe I would hold off on the side and then figure out later where it goes. Or one in Hot X, the algebra book, I talk about I'm talking about irrational numbers. And then I take the opportunity to talk about irrational feelings that girls have as their hormones are rushing through their body. And talk about, everyone talks about how testosterone makes boys want to kill and have these rushes of surges of feelings. Girls have them too, but it's different. Instead of this sort of the violence, it's more this yearning, this feeling of unrequited love, even if there's not even a guy to attach it to. We have these feelings too. And what, in movies like Twilight, where this girl falls in love with this guy who's basically saying, I'm dangerous. And she's like, okay, no, this is really be aware of these irrational feelings you're having and don't be ruled by them. So having opportunities to put that mixed in with a math to really talk to girls who are reading it and to relate to them and help to empower them in more than just math has been a delight and such a wonderful opportunity for me. So I get excited when there's something in math, like, oh wait, I can help girls and I'm going to insert it in this chapter because it's what they're thinking about anyway. And then they're making these associations between somehow making math even more relevant to their lives because of these little tidbits of advice that I can give them.
You have a lot of cool chapter titles, I'll give you that. One of my favorites was in Math Doesn't Suck, which is Why Calculators Would Make Terrible Boyfriends.
They don't understand the concept of forever.
Yes, they don't. They don't. They can't handle these recurring numbers. So, but I did want to ask you one question about this though. Like, you tie all these mathematical concepts to things that girls will be interested in, and I'm not one to comment on that. I was never a girl, and you were, so you know better than me. Crushes on boys, making friendship bracelets, and you use that to do, factorization and things like that. Lipsticks and all this sort of stuff. And that's obviously a clever thing to do. But I did wonder sometimes, in sort of an age where kids don't like adults telling them what to do, and are very aware of when parents are trying to be cool and trying to make things look cool, whether or not they'll ever sniff this out and they'll think, oh, I see what she's doing. She's taking something that I shouldn't be interested in, and she's so obviously connecting it to things I am interested in. Whether you would get any pushback and how you avoid that, how you keep it kind of that balance right between not being too much like mum telling you how to do math still.
Right. Look, it's a lot. Girls seem to really like it, and they get that I care. They get that I legit care, and that's what's motivating it. And I think that makes a difference. It doesn't feel like just a control game. I get what they're going through, and I'm here to help them feel better. And I think that comes through. But when it comes to the parents, I always tell parents, when you buy this book, Math Doesn't Suck. First of all, I got in trouble. Teachers and administrators well, we wouldn't let our kids wear T-shirts with that word on it. So, our kids are sneaking the book into their lockers. I'm like, oh, that's good. When kids are sneaking a book into their locker to show their friends, that's good. I tell parents, when you buy the book, put it on a coffee table, not in their room, put it on a coffee table, and don't say anything about it. The cover is designed for kids to get interested and then to open it. And they will read it they'll read section, even if they read the non-math sections, it gets them to open it, and then they'll start absorbing other things. And I've heard success story after success story of that working. What you don't want to do is like, read this, it's good for you. No. You don't have to. You don't have to push the book. You can just get it, and it will inspire curiosity.
Danica McKellar, Winnie from the Wonder Years. I can't believe I spoke to Winnie from the Wonder Years. Amazing. And I spoke to her about mathematics.
You sure did.
And in all that time, you never felt like telling me you were smart?
Kevin, you knew I was smart.
In the 4th grade, I knew you were good at math, okay? I didn't know you were some kind of Einstein or someone.
If you'd like to learn more about Danica's work and check out her math books, I'll include plenty of links in the notes for the podcast. The main website you want to check out is mckellarmath.com. I'm Brady Harron, and you've been listening to the Numberphile podcast.